Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we continue on with our discussion of Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Rupa Goswamis. And we're in the ninth Vilas. The ninth Vilas was the end of actually we basically ended in the end of the eighth Vilas. We ended the external worship of Lord Krishna with the Gopal mantra, the 18-syllable Gopal mantra, according to Kramadipika. And now we've got a few Mahatmyams or sets of verses from different shastras, from different scriptures, which are praising different parts of the worship. We spent the first part of the ninth Vilas, of the ninth chapter, talking about the glories of Charanamrita. So if you look at the last video, or the last lesson, we talked a lot about the glories of Charanamrita. And in certain parts, it was described that the Charanamrita is kept in a conch shell. And we also know that we can worship the conch shell. And there are certain prayers to Panchajanya, which is the name of the Lord's conch shell, Lord Vishnu's conch shell, or Lord Krishna's conch shell. And those are used in the worship of the conch shell that we use to bathe the deity. Of course, there are two conch shells. There's one for blowing, one for bathing, but the one for bathing the Lord, or for the one for offering water to the Lord in Arti, that conch shell sits on a conch shell stand because it shouldn't sit on the ground, and it's the worship. There's a type of agamic or tantric worship that goes on in the conch shell stand and also in the conch shell itself in different parts of the conch shell. We've already dealt with that in between the fifth and the eighth Vilas, between the fifth and the eighth chapters of Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the ritual worship, in the setting up of the articles that we need, the different paraphernalia that we've used to worship the deity. So now we're coming to a section where we're going to describe we're going to glorify. There are different scriptures that have glorified keeping a conch shell on a conch shell stand and invoking the holy rivers into the water and worshiping the Lord with that water. Okay, so now let's have a look at the main text and see where we left off last time. So the last sloka that we had, the last sloka which we left off at, was 95, and said, after drinking Charanamrita, which is the Lord's bathing water, which is that is mixed with sandalwood paste, flower petals, and rice paddy, and placed in a conch shell, one should put it on a stand in front of the Lord. So after we've finished taking Charanamrita, right after the worship of the Lord is over, we take the prasadam of the Lord in the form of the food offerings, the flower offerings. We can smell the incense which is offered to him. We can take prasadam of the lamps. We can touch the flames, and we can respect the lamps that are offered to the Lord. And also this Charanamrita, water that's offered to the Lord, we can sip it. The conch shell which is used to keep that water in should be placed on a stand. One should never put the conch shell on the bare floor. So now continuing on in the ninth chapter, text 96 and 97, we have here a Mahatmyam, or a glorification of placing the conch on a stand. So in the Skanda Purana, in a conversation between Brahma and Narada, there's what we call the Shankha Mahatmyam, or the glorification, glories of the conch shell. So here it said, one can easily achieve the favor of Lakshmi simply by looking at a conch shell filled with rice paddy, flower petals, and water. So there's just a little, there's mainly filled with water, and there's just a little bit of rice paddy. The rice paddy is what we call akshata. It should be husked rice, which is colored with either turmeric or kumkum, like that, and unbroken, and uncooked, unbroken, and with some flower petals, right, added to the water, and that was placed before the deity of Lord Vasudeva, or Krishna. All good fortune is showered upon a person who places a conch shell filled with rice paddy, flower petals, and durba grass. Durba grass. See here the word durvakshita. Durva means a type of sacred grass, and akshata means this unbroken rice, right? And it says sapushpam. Vari means water. Varijam. So sapush with flower petals and water. The durva and akshata, this grass and the akshata. This is what should be put in the conch shell, and it should be placed before Lord Vasudeva. And we achieve the favor of Lakshmi simply by seeing this setup. Text 98. After completing the worship of Lord Krishna, one should go to the garden and worship the tulsi plant. So we understood from the 7th Vilasa about different flowers and tulsi leaves that we have to acquire before we perform the worship of the deity, the external worship of the deity. So we naturally, in our garden, we should be keeping a tulsi tree or a tulsi plant so that we can get those tulsi leaves. So what it's saying here is after the worship of the Lord, then we should go and we should offer worship to the tulsi plant. So this is which is very dear to him. Right, so now we're going to talk about the worship of the Tulsi garden, right? So Ata Shri Tulsi Vana means a forest or a garden, puja. So first one should offer arghya to the Tulsi plant. So what we have different upacharas, different services that we've offered to the deity of Lord Krishna, and we've just finished the worship of Lord Krishna. So now what we're going to do is we're going to offer similarly some of those leftover items we're going to offer to Tulsi. So the arghya, we can use the arghya water or the arghya container that we use for the worship of the Lord to offer arghya to Tulsi. So arghya water, once again, is usually offered to the hands for washing the hands or sprinkled over the head of a respected guest. So one should first of all offer arghya to a Tulsi plant, and then one after another, sandalwood paste, flowers, rice paddy, and so on. So it says here, Ganda Pushpa Akshata Adi, beginning with Ganda Pushpa Akshata. So there's different numbers of services that we can offer when we offer puja to any personality, including Tulsi. Here, the simplest form of puja usually is offering of what we call pancha upacharas, or 5 things, which are Ganda, Pushpa, Dupa, Deepa, and Naivedya. So we're offering off Ganda means sandalwood paste mixed with aguru or whatever. Sandalwood paste. Ganda Pushpa means flowers or flower petals. Ganda Pushpa, here it's mentioned specifically Akshata. Akshata is this unbroken rice which is colored with turmeric or with kumkum, which can substitute for other items. So Ganda Pushpa, Akshata, Drupa or incense, Deepa a lamp, and Naivedya means food offering. The food offering, of course, should be the prasadam that we've offered to the Lord. So this is a way of worshipping Tulsi. Exactly how to do this worship is not explained. There may be other procedures, other prayogas, other procedures that explain how to do it, but we're not going to go into that exactly here, the details. But in any case, we're going to worship Tulsi. After the worship is finished, one should offer obeisances to Tulsi Devi, right? Meaning that one should bow down, one should also chant some prayers, and also offer some nice prayers. So now in text 100, we're going to learn some prayers. So here's a prayer for offering arghya to the Tulsi plant. Shriya, Shriye, Shriya Vase, Nityam Shridhara Satkrite, Bhaktya Datam Maya Devi, Argyam Grihna Namostute. Right? So this means, O Goddess Tulsi, you are the shelter and residence of Kamala. Kamala meaning the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi. Lord Sridhara. Sridhara, the reason why the word Sridhara is used here with Shri, we have a lot of words Shri here. Shri means auspicious, it also means Lakshmi. Sridhara is the name of the Lord who holds Lakshmi on his chest. He's the holder of Lakshmi, right? So that's why his name Sridhar is mentioned here. Lord Sridhar also, Sridhara, always respects you. I offer you this argya with devotion, and so please accept it. My obeisances unto you. So that's the mantra for offering. That's a prayer to offer to Tulsi for offering when you offer the argya to Tulsi. Right? And along with that prayer, we could also say, Idam argyam om tulasyai namaha. And so we could say, Shriya Shriya Vase Nityam Shri Virasakite Bhaktidata Maya Devi Argyabhira Namaste Idam argyam om tulasyai namaha, and offer argya to Tulsi, either by offering a spoonful of water to Tulsi and then throwing it in a throw-out pot of the Sarjaniya, or we can actually put the water on the base of the Tulsi tree like that, because the Tulsi tree needs water, so we can offer some water like that. Then we have a puja mantra, the mantra for worshipping Tulsi, the Tulsi plant, text 101. Nirmata tvam puradevaya, archita tvam surehi, tulasi harame papam, pujam grina namostute. Right, so we can see that here, the last line of each one of these verses indicates what we're offering to Tulsi. So the first one ends off with argyam grina namostute. I offer you argya, and obeisances, and pujam grina namostute in this one. O Tulsi Devi, you were created by the demigods long ago. Both demigods and demons worship you. Kindly destroy my sinful reactions and accept my worship. I offer my obeisances unto you. Okay, so now we have different prayers that we can offer to Tulasi. This is not given in a specific order. So the argya and the prayer, so it might come, if we want to write a procedure for doing Tulsi worship step by step, this is not it. Okay, so we can do that, but here they're just giving different aspects of Tulsi worship for us to understand. So now it says Studischa. Here's a prayer. Here's a prayer to Tulsi. Mahaprasada Janani Sarvasobhogivadini Adi Vyadi Hari Nityam. Right? Tulasi Tvam Namostute. We also note that each one of these prayers ends in Namostute, meaning I offer my obeisances unto you. So these are all prayers to be chanted out loud. O Goddess Tulsi, you enhance the good fortune of everyone. You are the mother of Mahaprasad. You always remove the dangers and diseases of your worshippers. My obeisances unto you. Text 103. Shriyam Dehi Yasho Dehi Kirtim Ayus Tata Sukam Balam Pushtim Tata Dharmam Tulasi Tvam Prasida Me. O Goddess, please be kind to me and give me wealth, fame, a long life, happiness, strength, nourishment, and religiosity. So that, again, this is continuing our prayers to Tulsi. Text 104, we have a mantra, Pranama Vakyam. Pranama Vakyam. So it means what we say, offering obeisances to Tulsi. This is coming from the Avanti Kanda, which is a section of, I believe, here we're talking about Skanda Purana. So Skanda Purana has a section called the Avanti Kanda. There's a place called Avanti, a holy place. And so this section of Skanda Purana is about that place. Specifically here is in text 104 is a prayer for offering obeisances to Tulsi. So it says, Yadrista Nikilagha Sangha Shamani Sprishta Vapu Pavani Roganam Abhivandita Virasini Sikantaka Trasini Pratyasati Vidayini Bhagavata Krishnasya Samropita Nyasta Tvatcharane Vimukti Palada Tasyai Tulasyai Namaha. Okay, so this is a prayer to be chanted out loud for Tulsi. I offer my humble obeisances to Tulsi Maharani. Maharani means queen Tulsi. So by whose darshan, or whose sight, all of one's sinful reactions are destroyed, by whose touch one's body becomes purified, by whose glorification one's illnesses are cured, who by watering one's fear of the wrath of Yamaraj is quelled, who by planting one attains Krishna's association, and who by offering her leaves at the lotus feet of Krishna, one obtains liberation in the form of pure devotional service. So continuing on, we have more prayers to Tulsi. Text 105. Bhagavatyas tulasyastu mahatmyamrita sagare bhobat kurditum ichchami chudrastu shamyatam vaya. O goddess Tulsi, although I am most insignificant, I'm trying to plunge into the nectarian ocean of your glories out of intense eagerness. Please forgive my offenses. So now text 106 starts. Ata Tulsi Vana Puja Mahatmyam. These are all the prayers that we should be offering, and but not necessarily in the order that they're being mentioned. And we need to write a prayoga, a step-by-step method of doing this Tulsi Puja. And here we're going to hear about the glories of doing this, the glories of performing this particular type of Tulsi worship with these prayers. So again, this is from Skanda Purana, and it's Mahatmyam, the glorification of Tulsi Vana Puja. So from Skanda Purana it says, it has been said that the same benefit one obtains by worshipping the Shalagram Shila on Shravana Dwadasi. So we are in the month of Shravana right now. Shravana, we're coming up to Shravana Purnima. Shravana Dwadasi would be the 12th day of the month of Shravana, right? It doesn't mention here whether it's the dark fortnight or the light fortnight. Usually when that's not mentioned, we can assume it's the light fortnight, because normally the light fortnight is more auspicious, considered more auspicious than the dark fortnight. The waxing moon is considered more auspicious than the waning moon. So it is said that the same benefit one obtains by worshipping Shalagram Shila on Shravana Dwadasi at the confluence of two rivers, which is an auspicious place where two rivers come together, which is called a Dviveni or a Triveni. If two rivers come together, it's called a Dviveni. Three rivers are Triveni. The confluence of rivers are considered holy. Can be attained by worshipping the Tulsi plant. So the same benefit. So text 107 from Garuda Purana, it says, O foremost of birds, somebody is, we don't know who, but somebody in this Purana is addressing Garuda, who is the carrier, the eagle, the divine eagle carrier of Lord Vishnu and Krishna. O foremost of birds, the merit one achieves by eating amalaki. Amalaki is a small Indian gooseberry, which it's very bitter. It has a lot of vitamin C, and it's used in a lot of Ayurvedic medicines and is considered very healthy. And also, it's an auspicious fruit. Foremost of birds, the merit that one achieves by eating amalaki or by fasting on Sri Krishna Janmastami or on Jayati Dwadasi. I don't know when Jayati Dwadasi is, but it's the 12th day of the moon in some month. We don't know exactly which one it is. We'd have to look it up. But Krishna Janmastami comes at a certain time of year. It's coming up very shortly, and so the fasting goes on Krishna Janmastami and on this particular Dwadasi, or eating amalaki. So the merit that one achieves from doing those things can be attained simply by worshipping the Tulsi plant. So text 108, there is no doubt that the benefit gained by giving up one's body at Kashi, when you give up your body at Kashi, you die at Kashi or Benares or Varanasi, Lord Shiva whispers into your ear the Sri Rama Jaya Jaya Rama mantra or Ramatarika mantra, and one attains liberation, right? So people like that, people who have faith in Kashi or Benares, Varanasi. They go there when they're very old to die in that place and to be cremated and have their ashes thrown in the Ganges there. So the benefit gained by dying, giving up one's body in Kashi, or bathing every day at Prayag. Prayag is the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna, right? It's considered a Triveni because the Saraswati River also comes there, but it's unseen. Like that, as ascertained by the demigods, can be achieved simply by worshipping Tulsi. Now we have some quotes, text 109, 110 from the Agastya Samhita. Remember, Agastya Samhita is mostly about the worship of Lord Rama. Okay, so we have here it says, Tulsi fulfills all the desires of anyone from the 4 varnas and 4 ashramas, right? The 4 varnas and ashramas. In the social system in India, there was a system of dividing up into different castes, people in different castes and different stages of life, right? Called the Varna Ashram system, who engages in her worship, right? So Tulsi fulfills the desires of anyone from the 4 Varnas or Ashramas who engages in her worship. Planting Tulsi, watering Tulsi, taking darshan of Tulsi and touching Tulsi awards one purification of his existence. By worshipping her with devotion, all of one's desires are fulfilled. So text 111, it's also said, one who, all the sinful reactions of a person who daily circumambulates and offers obeisances to the Tulsi plant are neutralized without delay. So here for the first time it's mentioning circumambulating Tulsi, going around Tulsi. Circumambulation in Sanskrit is called pradakshinam. It means going to the south, literally. So if you're facing east and you go to the south and you go around something, that means you go around clockwise. So pradakshinam means going around something clockwise, which is auspicious because we show the right side of our body to that thing, right? Which is more auspicious than showing the left side, which is the left hand and the left side of the body is perhaps used for some some cleaning rituals and things like that. So we don't show the left side of the body usually to God or to whatever. There's some different rules actually about offering obeisances. Actually, in offering obeisances, you're supposed to show your left side. But anyway, to Vishnu anyway. So here, we're just simply talking about production, going around clockwise, around Tulsi, and that neutralizes all our sinful reactions. So in the Brihad Naradiya Purana, in text 112 here, at the end of the story of Yajnadvaja is found the following verse: O Brahmanas, all kinds of auspiciousness go on increasing in the house where a Tulsi plant is carefully kept and worshipped every day. And now we have from the Padma Purana, text 113, in a conversation between Devadatta and Vikundala, it says, O foremost of Vaishyas, even demigods headed by Brahma worship the Tulsi plant on the Dwadasis in the fortnights of the waxing and waning moon. Okay, so here it specifically talks about the 2 different fortnights of the month, the waxing and the waning, the Shukla Paksha and the Krishna Paksha of the moon. And it talks about worshipping Tulsi specifically on Dwadasi, which is the day after Ekadasi, which is the 12th day, the day after the 11th day of the moon. So now we have also the glories of offering prayers to Tulsi. So not only worship of Tulsi, but just offering prayers to Tulsi is glorified here. It says, one who regularly offers prayers to the Tulsi plant with undivided attention becomes the object of affection for the demigods, forefathers, and human beings. Text 115 to 116 is the Mahatmyam about the Tulsi, the glories of the Tulsi forest, Tulsi Vana Mahatmyam. From Skanda Purana, it's mentioned in Kali Yuga, the Lord of the universe is not pleased with anything other than a Tulsi forest. In this age of Kali, Lord Keshava disregards thousands of holy places while eternally residing in a forest of Tulsi plants. Those who plant Tulsi with proper respect and who take darshan of the Tulsi forest undoubtedly achieve the highest destination. Continuing on, texts 118 to 119, that place where there is no amalaki tree Remember, I mentioned the amalaki is a holy fruit which has got a lot of vitamin C in it. Where there is no deity of Lord Vishnu, where there is no forest of tulsi plants, where there are no Vaishnavas, is no better than a graveyard. So all of these things make the place auspicious. What can Yamaraj and his messengers do to those who plant tulsi for the pleasure of Lord Keshava in the age of Kali? So this is a rhetorical question which is being asked. It's basically it's saying that the Yamaraj and his messengers can't affect the person who plants tulsi in this age of Kali for the pleasure of Lord Krishna. In other words, Yamaraj has no jurisdiction over such people. Continuing on, it is best to plant tulsi when the sun travels near the star Shravana. So if you're planting tulsi, you should look for, now here it says, when the sun travels near the star Shravana. Okay, when Shravana is there in the sun. Okay, normally when we look at the Panchangam means the Indian calendar, we normally see the days listed. The stars for the day is actually the moon star and not the sun star. So I think here I don't see an actual mention of something to do with the sun. So we can just say that tulsi should be planted on a day in the calendar which is called Shravana Nakshatra, or where the star Shravana is appearing. Now the reason for this is the birth star of Lord Vishnu is Shravana, right? The birth star of Lord Krishna is Rohini, but the birth star of Lord Vishnu is Shravana. So because Vishnu is associated with tulsi so much, Vaishnavas will plant the tulsi tree on the birth star of Lord Vishnu, Shravana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, forgives 1,000 offenses of a person who plants tulsi at this time. So if you're going to plant tulsi, plant it on a day in the Panchang, on the calendar, Shravana Nakshatra, where the star Shravana is being seen. So continuing on, text 121 to 122, O exalted Brahmana, all of the sacred places or temples of the Supreme Lord where devotees plant the sacred tulsi tree are transformed into most sanctified places of Lord Hari, who carries a chakra in his hand. By watering a forest of tulsi plants, one satisfies all the inhabitants of the three worlds. In a conversation between Narada, Brahma and Narada, that is recorded in the Skanda Purana, these verses are found. O Brahmana, the 10 directions. What are the 10 directions? Okay, so if we go north, south, east, and west, we have, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest, right? That's 8. Up and down, that makes 9. That makes 10. The 10 directions and the 4 kinds of living entities, right? There are different types of living entities. Not sure how they're categorized here, but probably there's living beings that are born from wombs, that are born from seeds, that are born from air, and that are born from, I don't know. I think there's four types there, but I'm not quite sure about what that is. Okay, and the 4 kinds of living entities become purified where the sweet aroma of tulsi is wafted with the help of the wind. O Narada, one should perform the Shraddha ceremony to the forefathers in a place that is sanctified by the shade of tulsi plants. By offering oblations to the forefathers in a place where tulsi seeds have been sown, one obtains inexhaustible benefit. A little later on in the same literature, what literature we're looking at, Skanda Purana, it says, seeing, touching, meditating on, glorifying, offering obeisances to, hearing about, planting, serving, or worshipping tulsi awards incalculable benefit. Text 127 and 128. Those who render service to the tulsi plant every day in these above-mentioned 9 ways. I'm not sure that we got 9 ways mentioned, but anyway, maybe we should These are the 9 ways in the previous verse I get. Yes, seeing, touching, meditating, glorifying, offering obeisances, hearing, planting, serving, and worshiping. Okay, these are 9 ways that we can worship Tulsi, right? So just like there's 9 forms of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vedanam, mentioned by Prahlad Maharaj in the Bhagavatam. So similarly, here we have 9 ways of worshiping Tulsi, Tulsi Bhakti. So those who render, and remember, it's stated in the scriptures that the worship of the devotee of the Lord, or the worship of that which is associated with the Lord, is greater than even the worship of the Lord himself. Aradhananam sarvesham vishnam aradhanam param tasmat paratanam devi tariyanam sachanam. Right, so this is devotional service to a devotee of the Lord, Tulsi Devi. Those who render service to a Tulsi plant every day in the above mentioned 9 ways will reside in the abode of Lord Hari for thousands of millions of yugas. Of course, if you go to the divine abode of Lord Hari through Vaikuntha, right, you do not come back. So, of course, we have a little bit of Shastra hyperbole here, that they're saying that you stay for thousands of millions of yugas. The idea is you go to the Supreme Lord's abode, you never return. In the age of Kali, a person who plants Tulsi achieves thousands of millions of highest credits for each branch of the Tulsi tree, Tulsi plant. Right. Text 129 to 130 says, O sage, for one who plants Tulsi and takes care of her branches, twigs, flowers, fruit, and seeds, all past, present, and future members of his family will live in the abode of Lord Hari for 1,000 Yuga cycles. Again, if you go to the abode of Lord Vishnu or Krishna, Vaikuntha, right, then you stay there forever and you never return. Okay, so now we have text 131, 132, again from the Avanti Kanda of the Skanda Purana. We have glorious are the hands of those who plant and pick Tulsi for the pleasure of Lord Keshava in Kali Yuga. In the age of Kali, simply by watering, by giving away, by meditating upon, by eating, by planting, by glorifying, and by offering, Tulsi leaves in the worship of Lord Keshava, all of one's sinful reactions are burnt to ashes. Next, we have from the Kashi Kanda, which is about Benares or Varanasi Kashi, right, the place Kashi, some instructions of Yamaraj speaking to chastising his servants, the Yamadutas. It says Svadutan, meaning Yamaraj Anushasani. So it's remembered, right, that Yama spoke to his servants, right? O messengers, do not arrest. Bring to me those who are decorated with Tulsi beads, who glorify Tulsi, and who maintained a Tulsi forest. Keep them at a great distance. Text 134. In the narration of Dhruva, in the story of Dhruva Maharaj, right, it is stated, I'm not sure exactly where that's from, but maybe that's also in Skanda Purana, it could be from the Bhagavatam or from the Vishnu Purana, wherever the story of Dhruva is stated. It's stated, Yamadutas never visit the houses where the Tulsi plant is regularly worshipped. In fact, they have no right to even see or go near such a house. Text 135 to 138. From the Padma Purana, there's a conversation between Devaduta and Vikundala, and it says in that conversation, O Vaishya, a person who plants Tulsi, who fulfills all desires and nullifies all sinful reactions, will never have to be punished by Yamaraja. The house where Tulsi plants grow is as good as a holy place of pilgrimage. As such, the Yamadutas are not even allowed to approach such a house. A person who plants Tulsi will happily reside in the heavenly planets for as many thousands of years as there are leaves and seeds on the plant, just by smelling the sweet aroma of Tulsi. The forefathers are enabled to ride on the back of Garuda and ascend to Vaikuntha. So imagine that. The Lord sends his own carrier, Garuda, his own eagle carrier, to people, to the forefathers to come and go to Vaikuntha, right? So that's what's being stated here. So text 139 to 140. O foremost Vaishya, bathing in the Ganges, having the darshan of the river Narmada. The Narmada River is there in Andhra Pradesh in India, right? It's a holy river, right? Narmada. And touching a tulsi leaf are considered equal in merit. So bathing in the Ganges, seeing the river Narmada, touching a tulsi leaf are considered equal in merit. By planting, maintaining, watering, seeing, and touching tulsi, all of the simple reactions that one has accumulated by means of his body, mind, and speech are burned to ashes. Text 141 to 142. O Vaishya, by sowing a single tulsi plant, one receives the same merit as one would obtain by planting 1,000 mango trees or 100 banyan trees. Right, so these are all auspicious trees. The mango tree is auspicious. The banyan tree is very auspicious. It's considered it's worshipped just like Lord Vishnu, actually, the banyan tree. A devotee of Lord Vishnu will reside in the abodes of the demigods for 100,000 yugas simply by planting tulsi. So now we have Vaishaka Mahatmyam. Vaishaka is 1 month of the year. So in the same literature, I believe we're talking about Padma Purana here. Padma Purana, yeah. So in Padma Purana, in the Vaishaka Mahatmyam, it said, holy places such as Pushkar, holy rivers such as Ganga, Ganges, and Lord Vasudeva reside in each and every leaf of a tulsi plant. So here it's saying that holy places like Pushkar, or holy rivers like the Ganges, and even the Lord himself, Lord Vasudeva, reside in each and every leaf of a tulsi plant. So naturally, the Supreme Lord, Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna, is all pervasive. So he resides in those leaves also. So it's just trying to give you an idea of how auspicious the tulsi leaf is, the tulsi plant is. Text 144. Just as haritaki, right? Haritaki is a type of astringent thing that you take sometimes after eating a very oily food to cleanse the mouth, right? Or molybdenum, maribbolum. Now, maribbolum, I think it also refers to this amalaki fruit. Cures all kinds of diseases. Tulsi alleviates poverty, disease, and simple reactions. A lot of times you'll see people taking tulsi leaves. Especially we should offer tulsi leaves to the Lord, and we can eat those tulsi leaves, and it's very good for health. So, tulsi alleviates poverty, disease, and simple reactions. In the Kartika Mahatmyam, the same literature, again, we're still talking about Padma Purana. It says the Yamadutas stay far away from the house where the tulsi plant is carefully protected, watered, and worshipped every day. Continuing on with text 146, 147, by offering oblations of water and tulsi to the forefathers, right, they remain satisfied for 10,000 years. So it's saying when you do tarpanam, here it's specifically said in the first verse, tarpanam, tulasyas tarpanam, pitrin. So when you offer tarpana to the pitris, right, we can say also to the rishis, to anybody, to any devatas, if you're offering tarpana, when Vaishnavas offer tarpana, it's saying here, it's suggesting here that we should also use tulsi leaves in tarpana. Okay, so there is no doubt that those who carefully maintain a tulsi plant and erect a fence to protect her, right? So you need a fence around your tulsi plant to protect it. Certainly worship Lord Hari. Text 148 to 150. An intelligent person should never disrespect tulsi by considering her to be an ordinary plant. The Shalagram Shila is a direct representation of Lord Vasudeva in Vaikuntha. In the same way, tulsi is a direct representation of Goddess Lakshmi. So just as Shalagram is Vishnu, the tulsi plant is considered no different from Lakshmi. By touching, seeing, and maintaining a tulsi plant, all the reactions to every grave sin are destroyed. Now, the Augustus Samhita says, again, Augustus Samhita is mostly about the worship of Lord Rama. Just as the daughter of King Janaka, meaning Sita Devi, is very dear to Lord Ramachandra, the master of the three worlds, Tulsi, the deliverer of all living entities, is very dear to Lord Vishnu. Lord Ramachandra, along with Sita, remains present in a forest of Tulsi plants that are surrounded by various flowering plants. O foremost sage, just as the land extending for 2 miles on either side of the Ganges is considered to be pure, the land that extends for 2 miles around a Tulsi forest is also considered pure. Those who relinquish their material bodies near a Tulsi plant avoid suffering the pangs of hellish life. In fact, they return to Vaikuntha in the spiritual world, spiritual sky. Continuing on, text 155. O great ascetic, when one sees a Tulsi plant, as soon as he wakes up in the morning, all the sinful activities that he had committed during the previous day and night are immediately destroyed. And in the Garuda Purana, it says, in text 156, 157, O foremost of birds, O son of Vainata, right? He's called Vainatiya. Garuda is called Vainatiya because he's the son of Vainata, right? A person who maintains a Tulsi plant has actually made an arrangement for the deliverance of all living entities. O best of birds, I'm telling you the truth, that one who has planted a sacred Tulsi tree in a garden, a forest, or at home has performed an act as worthy as establishing his rule throughout the world. Text 158 to 159. There is no doubt that one who spends even a moment in a Tulsi garden is liberated from all the sinful reactions that he had accumulated during his previous millions of lives. One who circumambulates a Tulsi garden every day while reciting the Vishnu Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of Vishnu, obtains the benefit of performing 10,000 sacrifices. Text 160 from the Hari Bhakti Sudadaya. It says, Lord Vishnu always resides in a Tulsi garden, thinking that some fortunate person will offer him an unbroken Tulsi leaf. Right, so Lord Vishnu wants us to offer Tulsi leaves, especially nice unbroken Tulsi leaves. But even if they're broken, they're also considered good. Even if they're dried, even if it's the twig of Tulsi, which is dried, even if we just chant the name of Tulsi. We understood this from before. Brihad Naradiya Purana also says in text 161, by glorifying the Ganges, one becomes freed of all sinful reactions. The same benefit can be obtained simply by displaying devotion to those who glorify the Tulsi plant and the transcendental qualities of Lord Hari. Text 162, Lord Hari resides where there is a Tulsi garden or a lotus pond, or wherever the Puranas are recited. Text 163, 164, a conversation in the same literature. I believe we're still talking about Padma Purana. Hari Bhakti Sudadaya. Oh no, Brihad Naradiya Purana. Brihad Naradiya Purana. Same thing, okay. Brihad Naradiya Purana. It's in a conversation between Bhagirata and Yama, King Bhagirata and Yamaraj. Okay, it says, O king, Yamaraj is saying, O king, hear now with rapt attention as I describe the piety of those who plant a sacred Tulsi tree. Such persons, along with 7 generations of their father's family and 7 generations of their mother's family, go to reside with Lord Narayana in his transcendental abode for more than 1,000 kalpas. Text 165. There is no doubt that according to the quantity of weeds one uproots around a Tulsi plant, that many sinful reactions, even for the killing of a Brahmana, are destroyed. So whatever weeds are growing around Tulsi, we should weed those and get those weeds out. And that is considered to be like destroying our sinful reactions, sinful karmas. Papakamas. Okay, so text 166. One who pours even a small quantity of water at the root of a tulsi plant will gain the association of the Supreme Lord who resides in the ocean of milk as long as the sun and moon shine in the sky. Text 167. Now, listen as I describe the piety of a person who makes a fence out of wood, thorn bushes, or any suitable material for enclosing the tulsi plant. So sometimes you see they make a wooden fence around something to protect it, or any suitable material to protect the tulsi plant. And thorn bushes can be used as a barrier for animals so the animals don't disturb tulsi. Okay, or human beings. Anyway, anybody doesn't disturb tulsi. So here, 168 to 169. O king, as long as that fence remains, the person who built it will reside in Brahmaloka for as many yugas, along with 3 generations of his family. A person who builds a protective wall around a tulsi plant will attain the liberation of having the same bodily features as that of Lord Vishnu, along with 3 generations of his family. This is called Swarupya Mukti, or Swarupya Mukti, liberation having the same bodily features as Lord Vishnu. So continuing on, we have, in the same literature, at the end of the story of Yajnaddwaja, this verse is found. Service to the tulsi plant is very rarely obtained, as is the association of devotees and devotional service to Lord Hari. In this ocean of material existence, I think it means, right, which entails repeated birth and death, these 3 are the only protectors. So, the service of Tulsi, the association of devotees, and the devotional service of Lord Hari. These are the 3 protectors which are mentioned in this verse. Text 171 to 173. In other Puranas, it's also stated, by planting Tulsi, who is very dear to Lord Hari, one obtains millions of times more benefit than by performing many sacrifices or donating a huge amount of wealth in charity according to the prescribed rules and regulations. O king, those who offer tulsi leaves in the service of the Supreme Lord and those who plant tulsi in a sacred place attain his eternal abode. When one plants tulsi, Yamaraj has no choice but to wipe clean the record of his sinful activities. O exalted Brahmana, one who simply utters the word tulsi 3 times a day achieves the benefit of giving 1,000 cows in charity every day. Text 175, O best of birds, Garuda, one who has planted tulsi has already given charity, performed fire sacrifices, chanted mantras, and offered shraddha at Gaya and undergone penance. Text 176. Just as everything is burnt to ashes by fire at the time of annihilation, all of one's sinful reactions are burnt to ashes simply by hearing the glories of Tulsi, as well as by seeing her, planting her, watering her, and offering obeisances to her. Text 177, the Vaishnavas who make a Tulsi garden in a temple of Lord Keshava will attain his eternal abode along with their forefathers. Text 179, 8 and 179. Elsewhere it's stated, O exalted sage, Lord Vishnu previously declared that offering oblations to the forefathers in a Tulsi garden is as good as offering oblations to the forefathers at Gaya. Simply by seeing Tulsi, one is free from all types of sins. Indeed, even the killer of a Brahmana is purified by seeing Tulsi. Text 180, in the conversation between Vashishta and Mandata that is recorded in Skanda Purana, this verse is found. O king, if the 3rd day of the waxing moon falls on a Wednesday, then one should listen to the glories of Tulsi, for that will award him unlimited piety. Text 181. In the course of this discussion, I will now write about the glories of offering to Lord Krishna clay from a Tulsi garden. The pulp or powder of Tulsi wood, right, and tulsi leaves. Previously, we talked about the pulp, right? If we grind up tulsi, we can make tulsi pulp, tulsi paste. That can also be offered to the Lord, in addition to sandalwood paste, right? Or in substitute for sandalwood paste even. So we have tulsi pulp, tulsi powder, tulsi leaves, and clay or dirt from the tulsi garden. These are all considered auspicious. So now we're going to hear a mahatmyam, or the glories of the sticks and the clay or the dirt surrounding tulsi. That's right. The glories of clay that is found near the root of the tulsi plant, as well as tulsi wood. From the Skanda Purana, in a conversation between Narada and Brahma, it's stated this is text 182 to 184. It says, "Know for certain that the clay found, or the dirt found, where the roots of a tulsi plant have spread, is as sanctified as millions of holy places of pilgrimage. One should very carefully keep that clay or that dirt, one whose body or house is adorned with clay that was taken from the root of the tulsi plant, is not to be considered inferior to a demigod. One can escape the wrath of Yamaraj if, at the time of death, his body is smeared with the clay found at the root of a tulsi plant." Text 185 to 186. "O exalted Brahmana, all obstacles and dangers that had befallen a person who touches the clay from the root of a tulsi plant to his head are dispelled, and all the stars and planets become pleased with him. O great sage, Lord Vishnu cannot leave the house where there is clay taken from the root of a tulsi plant, tulsi wood, and tulsi leaves. In the same literature, it's also described elsewhere, text 187 to 188. O best of Brahmanas, to achieve auspiciousness and purity, intelligent people smear their body with the clay from the root of the tulsi plant and touch it to their heads. Lord Janardana, being pleased with them, fulfills all their desires." So if we take a ritualistic bath and we use clay, or if we use dirt, the dirt from the tulsi tree can be used in our ritualistic bath to purify ourselves. From the Brihad Naradiya Purana, regarding the part regarding the Ganges, the Ganga river, one who decorates his body with tilak made from the clay found at the root of the tulsi plant, from the footprint of a Vaishnava, right? So if we take clay from the place where a Vaishnava put his footprint, or from the bank of the Ganges, it's accepted as non-different from Lord Vishnu. So we can use Ganges clay, we can use clay or dirt that comes from the footprint of a Vaishnava, or we can use tulsi clay, tulsi dirt for tilak. So good pramana, nice pramana. Text 190 from Garuda Purana, it said, "Kali has no right to enter the house of a person who keeps dry or green tulsi wood, even dry tulsi wood." Text 191 to 193. In the Prahlad Samhita and Vishnu Dharmottara, these verses are found. "Everything about tulsi is pure, including her leaves, flowers, fruit." I don't know if I've ever had any tulsi fruit. I don't know what that means, tulsi fruit. Okay. Yeah, I don't. The palam, it's there. Okay. Right there in the first line. Fruit, wood, bark, branches, twigs, tender leaves, and roots, and the clay from her roots. Right? Brahmanas who perform sacrifice with tulsi would obtain the merit of performing 100 Agnastoma sacrifices with each and every piece of wood offered. The food that is cooked on a tulsi wood fire and offered to Lord Keshava is like the Sumeru mountain. The Sumeru mountain is described in the Puranas as a mountain of gold, a golden mountain. So here, food which is cooked on a cooking fire made of tulsi wood, that's considered to be very auspicious. In other words, it's glorious. Those souls whose dead bodies are burned in a fire of tulsi wood will never return to this world from the abode of Lord Vishnu. Text 195. If the dead body of a sinner who had committed very grave sins, such as having sexual relations with a prohibited partner, is burnt in a tulsi wood fire, then he is liberated from all sinful reactions. Text 196. If the dead body of a person who has never visited a holy place of pilgrimage or chanted the holy names of Lord Hari is burnt in a tulsi wood fire, he will not have to experience birth again in this world. He will become liberated. So, even without visiting holy places or chanting the holy name. Text 197 says, even though one may have committed millions of sinful acts, if his dead body is burnt by the fire ignited by a single piece of tulsi wood thrown in with heaps of other woods, he is liberated from all sinful reactions. Text 198. Only the bodies of those who have by good fortune pleased the Lord Janardana in the course of 100 million lives are burnt in the tulsi wood fire. Only the dead bodies of those who have by good fortune pleased Lord Janardana in the course of 100 million lives are burnt in the tulsi wood fire. So, a person who has a funeral pyre made of tulsi wood or has tulsi wood in it is considered to have been blessed by Lord Janardana over the course of 100 million lives. Again, from the Augustus Samhita, which is mostly about the worship of Lord Rama, remember? Right? It says, the worship of the Lord and other devotional activities performed by a person who chants on beautiful tulsi beads and wears tulsi neck beads awards him unlimited benefit. Right? So later on, when we're going to be talking about different types of japa malas, in chapter 17 of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, which is about Purascharana or Purascharya, how to perfect the mantra, the initiation mantra given by the Guru. It'll be mentioned that there are different types of mala. The tulsi bead mala is the best. So here's also another pramana that can be used in that section, right, to show that the tulsi bead mala is considered to be the best. It gives unlimited benefit. Text 200. Ata tulsi patram dharana mahatmyam. The glories of honoring or wearing or holding on your head or touching tulsi leaves. In Skanda Purana, the conversation between Narada and Brahma says, what is the need of traveling to holy places of pilgrimage or performing sacrifices for a person whose navel, mouth, ears, and head are decorated with tulsi leaves that are offered to the Lord? So I think I was mentioning before that sometimes in the Madhva Sampradaya, the Madhvas, they take tulsi manjaris. Tulsi manjari is a flower of the tulsi plant that contains the seeds. And usually when we pick them from the tulsi plant, we pick them with one leaf on each side. So we pick not only the manjari, but also a little bit further down the stem with 2 leaves, at least 2 leaves on them. So those are offered to the Lord, and after offering to the Lord, the prasadam can be placed on the ears or inside the ears, like that, or on the head, like that. So here it's talking about for a person whose navel, not below the navel, but navel, mouth, ears, head are decorated with tulsi leaves, right, that were first offered to the Lord, right? There's no need for him to perform pilgrimage or perform any sort of sacrifices. Text 201 to 202, elsewhere in the same literature, this literature was Skanda Purana, right? It said that tulsi leaves enhance one's piety, destroy one's enemies, award one good fortune, and cure one's illnesses. By touching tulsi leaves to one's head, one becomes righteous. A Vaishnava, even if he is not following the principles of Varnashrama, or even if he's a liar and a cheater, can purify the 3 worlds by honoring tulsi. In a conversation between Yama and Bhagirata that is found in the Brihad Naradiya Purana, it's stated, O noble king, all the simple reactions of a person who decorates his ears with tulsi leaves or tulsi wood are eliminated. Some sadhus in India, you even see have tulsi bead earrings. The Yamadutas spoke this verse to a Brahman Vaishnava in Hari Bhakti Surodaya, text 204. Tulsi is very dear to Lord Hari. We do not know why, but the Lord follows a person who carries Tulsi in his hand just to protect him. In other Puranas, it's also stated in text 205, all the religious duties of a devotee who places a Tulsi leaf on his head award him inexhaustible benefit. Text 206 and 207. From the Garuda Purana, the glories of eating Tulsi leaves, of actually taking Tulsi leaves, which are first offered to the Supreme Lord, obviously. So Yamaraj forgives all offenses of a person whose head, ears, and mouth are adorned with Tulsi leaves. O Garuda, O son of Vinata, by eating Tulsi leaves in the morning, at noon, and in the evening, one receives more purification than by performing 100 Chandrayana Vratas. Chandrayana Vrata, again, is the Vrata of the different aspects or phases of the moon, where we do more or less fasting every day throughout the month, which I've described before. So, text 208, in the Skanda Purana, in a conversation between Vishishta and Mandata, it says, one's body becomes more purified by eating Tulsi leaves than by observing Chandrayana, which was just described, Chandrayana fasting. Tapakricha means sitting in the middle of 4 fires with the sun shining down, beating down on your head, 5 fires. Brahmakurcha is another type of vrata, or another type of tapasya, type of austerity that one has to perform. And kushodaka is another type of austerity which is performed, which we don't know exactly what they are. Kushodaka means, kusha means sacred grass, and udaka means water. So something about kusha and water. And Brahmakurcha, a kurcha is a certain sacred knot called a Brahma Granthi, which is tied into the kusha grass to make a particular auspicious magic wand. And Brahmakurcha is usually, Brahmakurcha means the particular wand that we invoke the Lord Chaturmukha Brahma in. But here it means some sort of vrat or some sort of penance. So text 209, it is a well-known fact that by eating Tulsi leaves, even a sinful and wretched person who has no faith at all can achieve the highest destinations. Text 210. Brahma spoke the following verse to Narada as found in the Skanda Purana, and the Vishnu Dutas spoke the same verse to the Yamadutas at the end of the story of Lubdaka, as described in a book called Amrita Sarodhara, which may be a part of Skanda Purana, I don't know. But Amrita Sarodhara. Supremely fortunate Tulsi, who fulfills all of one's desires, appeared during the churning of the ocean, the milk ocean, for the purpose of delivering all living beings, living entities. So there are a lot of things which came out of the churning of the ocean of milk, that story. And Lakshmi was one of them. Tulsi is one of them. So there's many, many auspicious things that came out at that time. The nectar of immortality came out. So text 211 to 212, simply by seeing, remembering, or glorifying Tulsi, all of one's sinful reactions are destroyed. What then can be said of the person who offers her in the worship of Lord Vishnu? Lord Vishnu leaves aside flowers made of gold, made of coral, or even jewels to accept Tulsi leaves. Tulsi leaves are so great. Text 213. If even a hunter, means a person who murders animals, kills animals, right, gives up his body at the time of death after eating a Tulsi leaf, then all his sins are burned to ashes. Text 214. Just as all sins are washed away by the water of the Ganges and the Yamuna, all of one's ambitions are fulfilled by eating green or black Tulsi leaves. So sometimes we have these two different types of Tulsi. Sita asita. Sita asita. Yeah. Okay. Different types of Tulsi. Sometimes these tulsis are called, the black ones are called Krishna tulsi, and the green ones are called Rama tulsi, sometimes. So, text 215, just as a blazing fire burns to ashes all the trees in a forest, the potency of a tulsi leaf nullifies all the sinful reactions of one who eats it. 216. Just as one nullifies his sinful reactions by remaining engaged in the devotional service of Lord Hari, one can burn to ashes all his accumulated sinful reactions simply by eating a tulsi leaf. The quality of piety one obtains by eating a tulsi leaf cannot be attained even by observing 1,000 Chandrayana vratas and 100 paraka vratas. I don't know what a paraka vrata is exactly. Not sure. Text 280. Lord Hari has personally declared that even after committing thousands of sinful activities in the early part of his life, if one eats tulsi leaves, he will be freed from the reactions of all his sins. Text 219. O messengers of Yama, until an embodied soul eats or simply touches tulsi leaves to his head, sinful reactions continue to dwell within his body. Text 220. Amalaki, remember that Amalaki, Indian gooseberry, which is very, very astringent, very much low vitamin C, very sour, used in Ayurvedic medicine, auspicious fruit. Amalaki has appeared from nectar, and tulsi is most dear to Lord Vishnu. Therefore, by remembering, glorifying, meditating upon, and eating these two, all of one's desires will be fulfilled. Right. So we should eat Amalaki, we should eat tulsi. The Supreme Lord spoke the following verse to Yamaraj as recorded in the Skanda Purana. There can never be degradation of a person whose mouth, head, and body are decorated with tulsi leaves or Amalaki fruit. Text 222. A person who was involved in many grave sinful activities and is without any piety at all, eats tulsi leaves, he attains salvation. He attains liberation. Right. Text 223. Know for certain that a hunter attained my supreme abode after giving up his material body with which he had eaten tulsi leaves. So just by eating tulsi leaves, even hunters, even killers of animals like that, they can go to liberation. In another Purana, it's stated in text 224, O exalted Brahmana, by fasting on the Dwadasi of the waxing moon and then eating tulsi leaves the day after, right? So the day after the Dwadasi will be the Trayodasi, and eating a tulsi leaf on that day, one achieves the benefit of performing 8 course sacrifices. Text 225. In the Hari Bhakti Sudadaya, Lord Krishna has been addressed as the friend of the Brahmanas because, as a result of touching a tulsi plant, a certain Brahmana was protected by his Sudarshana chakra. So the Lord protected one Brahmana who touched the tulsi plant by sending his own Sudarshana chakra, his discus weapon, to protect it. 226. Therefore it is said, alas, what can I say about the wonderful glories of tulsi simply by touching her leaves or by putting water containing tulsi leaves and clay from the root of the tulsi plant on one's forehead? All sinful reactions are destroyed. Text 227. Although such statements are found in scriptures, Vaishnavas should never accept tulsi leaves without first offering them to Lord Krishna. So we should always Krishnarpanam, Vina. So the word Vina here means without. And Krishnarpanam means without offering to Krishna. Krishnarpanam Vina. Grahayed. We should not accept. Vaishnavas should not accept tulsi leaves that are not offered to the Lord. Tulsi beads, tulsi leaves, tulsi dirt, whatever it is, we should offer it to the Lord first. Text 228. Just as tulsi is very dear to Lord Krishna, so is Amalaki fruit. Now I will write about the glories of Amalaki, of this Indian gooseberry, right? So we're going to hear about the glories of the Amalaki fruit. So here we have text 229, the glories of Amalaki. So in Skanda Purana, right, a conversation between Narada and Brahma, right, it's mentioned about the Datri tree or the Datri fruit, which is the Amalaki fruit. One who worships the Supreme Lord, who carries a chakra in his hand, meaning Lord Vishnu, while sitting in the shade of an Amalaki tree, obtains the merit of performing a horse sacrifice with each flower he offers to the Lord. In the same literature, which is Skanda Purana, it's stated, O great sage, Lord Madhava becomes pleased with a person who offers oblations to the forefathers while sitting in the shade of an Amalaki tree. Indeed, the Lord awards liberation to his forefathers. Text 231. O exalted sage, such a great soul is very rarely seen who touches Amalaki fruit to his nose, mouth, head, and hands. Text 232. Devotees can become qualitatively one with Lord Narayana. We can't become quantitatively one with God, but here it's saying we can become qualitatively one with Lord Narayana by eating the Amalaki fruit, by decorating their bodies with Amalaki fruit, by smearing their bodies with the pulp of Amalaki fruit. So sometimes when you do an oil bath, you might use Amalaki to wash off that oil, right? It's an astringent fruit. Text 233. O noble sages, devotees who honor Amalaki fruit become dear to the demigods, and so, what to speak of human beings? Even though a devotee may not strictly follow the prescribed code of conduct, or even if he is a wicked person, if he honors Amalaki fruit and leaves, he can purify the entire world. Lord Narayana becomes very pleased with a person who regularly holds an Amalaki fruit in his hand, and so he awards him a benediction. Text 236. If a person eats an Amalaki fruit held in his hand, he receives fame and wealth by the mercy of the Supreme Lord who holds the chakra in his hand. Text 237. So it's interesting because basically the way the sloka is mentioned here, if you hold the Amalaki fruit in your hand and you eat it, right, it's like the mercy of the Supreme Lord who holds a chakra in his hand. So it's sort of equating a chakra with an Amalaki here. Interesting. So text 237, the life of a person in whose house clay from Dwarka or Gopi Chandana, the sort of the yellowish clay that we get from yellowish or tan colored clay that we get from Dwarka is used for the Vaishnava Tilaka, Udva Pundram. So the life of a person in whose house is clay from Dwarka or Gopi Chandana, Tulsi and Amalaki fruit, if they're all present there, that person's life is glorious. Text 238, a person who drinks water in which the pulp of the Amalaki fruit and Tulsi leaves have been placed, and carries it in his hand, and obtains the benefit of visiting millions of holy places of pilgrimage. Text 239, O foremost Brahmana, what is the need of Ganges water for a person in whose house there is water in which Tulsi leaves and the pulp of Amalaki fruit have been placed? Text 240, it is said that food offered to the Lord, along with Tulsi leaves and Amalaki fruit, is the destroyer of all sinful reactions and the protector of the Vaishnavas. Text 241, in the Brahma Purana it's mentioned, sin cannot remain in a person whose body, mouth, and head are decorated with Tulsi leaves and Amalaki fruit at the time of death. Text 242. If one comes in contact with low-class people within a temple or after completion of the Lord's worship, he needs to bathe. Because the word adi is used, it is understood that this rule applies to other places as well. So it says here, Pitvatu bhagavat pujam natirtam snanam acharet nacha devalayo peta asprishya samsprishadina. Sprishya, asprishya, samsprishadina. Right. So asprishya, asprishya, samsprishya means who, if he has touched people that shouldn't be touched, comes in contact with people, low-class people, then he has to bathe. Right. So, for instance, it's given an example here. If you touch people who are contaminated or considered contaminated or low class, right, then you need to bathe. Right. So, but the word adi at the end of the fourth line here of the verse indicates that there are other reasons why you might have to bathe. So, if you become contaminated in any way, right, then you need to bathe. This is basically the meaning of this sloka. If you become contaminated at any time, you need to bathe. Why were we discussing this? We don't know. All of a sudden, we're starting to talk about bathing to become free from being contaminated. So some idea of bathing was being given here, and now we're talking about bathing in the Brahma Purana. Okay. So now we're going to talk about prohibited times for bathing. Atashnana nisheda kalaha. Okay, so really what's happening here is we're starting a new topic. And the new topic is going to be about when are good times to bathe and when are bad times to bathe. Okay, so it doesn't seem like it's sort of a very abrupt change of pace here from the sin. Sin cannot remain in a person whose body, mouth, or head are decorated by tulsi leaves and amalaki fruit at the time of death. So we've been talking about becoming purified by the use of amalaki and tulsi leaves, and now we're talking about that we might be contaminated in some other way by coming in contact with low-class people, or by other things. We might become ritually contaminated or physically contaminated, and therefore we have to take a bath again. And so therefore we should understand what are the prohibited times for bathing. So this is a completely new topic here. Seems like a completely new topic here. Because we've got into this new topic about times of prohibited times for bathing. So I think it's a good place to stop here today.